It all started when a new family moved into the vacant flat next to ours. Our apartment building was quiet, nestled on the outskirts of town. It was a beautiful building, well kept, and peaceful, the kind of place where neighbors didn't just wave hello, but genuinely cared for one another. The flat beside ours had been empty for months after our old neighbors moved out, and when a new family moved in, we welcomed them with open arms. They seemed like the perfect family. There was Nick and Sabrina, the couple who were kind and easy to talk to, their two daughters, Ava, just 4 years old, and little Lily, only 2, and Sabrina's mother, who was sweet but quiet. Sabrina and I quickly became close, like sisters. We would sit for hours, chatting about everything under the sun. Her family was wonderful, and it didn't take long for me to feel like part of their little world. The warmth and comfort they radiated were genuine. Everything was perfect. That is, until my parents had to leave for a few days to take care of my grandmother, who had suddenly fallen ill. I was in the middle of my exams, so I stayed behind. Sabrina suggested I stay with her family for a couple of days to keep me company, and to my surprise, my mom agreed. I thought it would be a nice change of pace, a way to relax after a long day of studying, so I packed a small bag and went over to their apartment. The first night was peaceful. We had dinner, laughed, and talked about everything. But that night, something happened, something that has stayed with me, haunting me ever since. I woke up suddenly at exactly 3:01 a.m. I had no idea why, but my eyes were wide open, and I immediately started searching for my water bottle, which I had kept under the bed. But as I fumbled in the dark, I heard something that stopped me cold. A sound, faint but clear, as if something sharp was being chopped over and over, then stopped for 5 seconds, only to begin again. It was a sound that chilled me to the core. My heart began to race. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but the sound persisted. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Curiosity, or maybe just dread, got the best of me. I decided to investigate. I quietly slipped out of bed, trying not to make a sound, and followed the noise, trying to pinpoint its source. It led me to the kitchen. What I saw there, I still can't believe it. Sabrina stood in the dim light of the kitchen, holding a knife in her hands. Her 2-year-old daughter, Lily, was lying on the stove, not in a crib, not in a bed, but sprawled across the cold, unlit stove. She was asleep, completely unaware of the horror unfolding around her. Sabrina, her face expressionless, was sharpening the knife with methodical precision. The only light in the room was a single, flickering candle. The room felt heavy, suffocating, like time had frozen. I stood there, frozen in place, terrified beyond words. The sound of the knife scraping against the sharpener echoed in my ears. Without thinking, I reached for my phone, trying to stay as quiet as possible, and called Nick. My hands shook as I dialed, my heart pounding in my chest. When Nick answered, his voice was calm, almost too calm. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone surprisingly casual. I tried to keep my voice steady, whispering, "Nick, you need to come here." "Sabrina, she's..." Before I could finish, he interrupted me. "It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just go back to bed." I didn't know what to say. It didn't make sense. Why wasn't he more concerned? Why was he acting like everything was normal? He didn't say much more before hanging up, and I stood there in disbelief. The sounds of chopping stopped a few moments later, and it was as if nothing had happened at all. I went back to the guest room, my mind racing, my heart still in my throat. But the entire night, I couldn't shake the image of Sabrina, standing there in the kitchen, with that knife. I didn't sleep a wink. The next morning, Sabrina acted like nothing was wrong. We had breakfast like usual, her laughter filling the room. Her smile warm and kind. It was as though the night before had been a figment of my imagination. I didn't mention it to anyone. Not to Sabrina. Not to Nick. Not to my parents. It was as though the whole thing was a dark, twisted dream, but I couldn't forget. I couldn't shake what I had seen. It gnawed at me for days. And I knew one thing for sure: I never wanted to be around Sabrina's family again. When my parents returned, I went back home. I cut ties with them. It felt strange, but I couldn't ignore what had happened. Something was deeply wrong. Months passed, and no one ever mentioned that night. Sabrina and her family eventually moved out, and they never reached out again. It was as if they had vanished from my life, like they had never existed. I tried to forget, but it lingered in the back of my mind, every shadow, every quiet moment, reminding me of that chilling scene in the kitchen. Some nights, when I'm alone, I still hear the sound of a knife sharpening in the distance, and I wonder if they're still out there, if they ever left.